everyone. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, turning in our gray hymnal to our opening hymn, number 354, singing together, We Laugh, We Cry, in the gray hymnal, number 354. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found the need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special soul. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear the aged nation freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe. What peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found our joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a progressive religious community working for peace and justice since 1865. My name is Stella Gorlin, and I serve this congregation as the Director of Spiritual Growth and Development. Whether you're joining us in person, tuning in on the live stream, or watching on demand at a later time, we hope your experience with us leaves you feeling welcome and valued just as you are. Thank you for choosing to be with us. Your very presence is a gift. If you are here for the first time, we warmly invite you to attend our newcomer welcome right after the service in the Redmond Room, which is the second door on your left as you head back towards the main entrance. There you'll find staff and volunteers that are ready to answer questions and help you make connections. You can also fill out a newcomer survey, which is available on our website at uuaa.org/newcomersurvey. There are lots of ways to get to know our community, and we happen to have a couple of offerings happening today. First, UUs for Justice in the Middle East and the Board of Trustees warmly invite you to a reception in the social hall after the service to honor Reverend Manish's recent travels to Palestine. You'll get to hear a bit from our senior minister about the delegation during the service today and in the coming weeks and months. And soon after the reception, we're going to come back here into the sanctuary in community for a resistance sing-along. Let's raise our voices to learn some of the protest songs we're hearing in Minneapolis and in our own local demonstrations. We are in the worship season of reflecting. These dark, chilly, and snow-covered weeks offer an opportunity to explore the past, ponder the present, and imagine the future. This morning, we will consider the historical mythologies that inform our cultural, religious, and political identities, the narratives we pass down from generation to generation, some of which offer strength and resilience, and some of which create ongoing harm. We will look deeply at how societies are defined by the stories we tell about ourselves and our history, and perhaps more importantly, the stories we leave out, the stories that we don't tell. As we prepare to challenge some of those orthodoxies, let us first center ourselves with a poem from Anna Geoffroy, A Blessing for the Front Lines. Oh, you rebel, you queer and wayward child, you abandoned and listless, you angry and forgotten, you brown and black and indigenous, you homeless and impoverished, you dreamer, you warrior, you are not alone here. You have never been alone. Not in this place, not in this time, not in the whole of history. There have always been ones like you. There will always be ones like you. We have always fought in the papers, in the streets, with paint cans and with pens, through tear gas and water cannons, in your armor inadequate, in your fear and your rage. You have never been alone. Plant your feet like the 1,000-year oak. Scream like the ghosts of your ancestors. Light your hearts on fire with the ashes of all the dead sons. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship.
Have you ever woken in the night in fear? Did a bad dream or a worry disturb your rest? If you're anything like me, you've likely turned on the bedside lamp as a way to reorient yourself to the present, to make sense of the shapes and shadows that had caused your mind to race and your fears to rise. If you're anything like me, the presence of that warm glow brings comfort, relief, and even peace. Every Sunday when we gather, we reorient ourselves towards the light, towards peace when we light our chalice. We can be comforted by its glow, reminded of our place in the family of things, here in our spiritual home, in our sanctuary. I would now like to invite Laura Lodick to join me on the chancel to light the chalice. And for those of you joining us at home, please ready your chalice and let us know in the chat from where your chalice is lit. Through all of our seeking, questioning, wondering, and speculating, this chalice stays lit, a symbol of our faith, our resistance, our spiritual growth, a light to beckon us towards peace, towards truth, towards love. Please join me now in saying these chalice lighting words. This chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Lord. Each and every week, we gather and we engage in the same spiritual practices: the chalice, the covenant, the call to worship. They all bring us closer to our own truths and remind us of our commitment to peace, to justice, and to helping one another. We reaffirm in word and deed our collective values, our shared commitments, and our love for one another. Familiar as these words may be, I hope they are not simply a rote recitation. I invite you today and all days to engage with these words anew, to find meaning in these phrases, and to reignite your dedication to this community. As the world grows increasingly chaotic, turbulent, and at times disheartening, I encourage you to renew your commitment to this community. We are always stronger together, for many waters cannot quench love, and neither can floods drown it. Please join me in speaking the words of our covenant together. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
I grew up in a liberal household in Birmingham, Michigan, an area that was once deep, deep red. I have this very vivid memory of voting for Walter Mondale in my elementary school's mock election in 1984, which Ronald Reagan won in a landslide 80-20 in my elementary school. So that gives you a little sense of how deep red we were. But my interest in politics and history was pretty muted until I was a senior in high school and I discovered that everything I thought I knew about this country was wrong. I read a book that radicalized me, James Loewen's eye-opening Lies My Teacher Told Me, published originally in 1995. In the introduction, he quotes James Baldwin, who said in a talk to teachers in 1964, quote, "American history is longer, larger, more various, more beautiful, and more terrible than anything anyone has ever said about it," end quote. This book opened my eyes to how little I was taught about the lived experiences of indigenous people, of immigrants, of Black Americans, of marginalized people throughout our history, whose stories needed and still need to be told. I realized how much I had bought into the story of American exceptionalism. In recent years, it looked like maybe, just maybe, we as a nation were beginning to reckon with the truth of our past. As historian Alexander Carn told Mother Jones, quote, "To deny that messiness by seeking to erase the perspectives that don't flatter a dominant group or help create a triumphal history is anti-egalitarian and therefore anti-democratic. The road to a more perfect union, which is enshrined in the Constitution, runs through the past, and it depends on our willingness to confront our history in an honest and thoroughgoing way," end quote. That is not the road we are currently on. In a sea of terrible things that this administration has done in just 1 year, nothing has hurt my history teacher heart more than watching helplessly as the institutions we have entrusted to provide honest education about the country, warts and all, have been attacked, delegitimized, and decimated. The Smithsonian, the National Archives and Library of Congress, the National Park Service, colleges and universities, PBS and NPR, the website of the federal government, the White House itself, public schools and public libraries, and once great publications like the Washington Post. My favorite historian, David Blight, writes the following: "They're trying to say the source of truth about how Americans should understand their history, should display it, should represent it, should learn it, shall be determined by ideology born of the Heritage Foundation and transferred over to the White House. History is not just a story you are comfortable living in. History is going to make you uncomfortable. It's a beautiful, joyous search for a past that helps us understand who we are in the present. How else can we ever understand who we are in the present unless we build it on where we've been and what we've done? And we have to be willing to face the ugly parts and the beautiful parts," end quote. Our story for all ages this morning offers a parable about the importance of preserving and protecting the truth in this frightening age of disinformation and propaganda. The Sad Little Fact, written by Jonah Winter, illustrated by Pete Oswald. There once was a fact, a little fact, a sad little fact. No one took the fact seriously. They laughed at it and called it names. "You're just a lie. I don't believe you." Then they'd walk right past it or step over it without so much as a blink. The sad little fact had just one thing to say back. A fact is a fact, which shouldn't have been such a big deal, but it was. One day, the authorities demanded that the sad little fact admit that it was not a fact, but the sad little fact could not tell a lie, so it refused. Now the authorities grew angry, and they hurled the sad little fact into a big box, closed the lid, and buried it deep underground. And that was that. Inside, the sad little fact saw that it was surrounded by other facts. They all introduced themselves. 2 + 2 = 4. A refrigerator is not a moose. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Human beings are members of the ape family. Dinosaurs became extinct 66 million years ago, and so on and so forth. It was a powerful collection of facts. But in time, the facts grew restless. They tired of being in a box and wanted to get out. "I think a hole needs to be made," suggested the sad little fact. But how? The facts had no tools. They were just facts. Meanwhile, a bunch of lies created by the authorities were taking over the world outside the box. They too called themselves facts, but they weren't. The world grew dark. A hardy band of fact-finders were troubled by the situation. "Where are the real facts?" they cried. "Where have you buried them?" But the only reply they got was, "These are the facts." And so the fact-finders started digging. Equipped with only shovels, flashlights, and a need to know the truth, they dug a tunnel deep, deep underground. At last, they heard voices, the sound of facts, hoping to be discovered, and found the box. They hoisted it out of the darkness and let out the facts. In the clear blue light of day, the facts were glorious in all of their factual splendor. The earth revolves around the sun, and people are causing the earth to get warmer. A fact is a fact, cried the sad little fact, who was not so sad anymore. A fact is a fact, they all cried out in unison. Some people chose to ignore the facts, turning their backs and walking away in a huff. But for those with minds to think and a need to know the truth, the facts could not be denied. And that's a fact. Isn't that a good one? I just have to say. So now is the time in our service when our children leave the sanctuary and head to their gathering spaces with their adult leaders. I invite the congregation to sing to us with love and tenderness.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
In addition to our commitments to each other and to our community at large, we also affirm our commitment to UUAA specifically through the spiritual practice of giving. Your generosity and steadfast contributions have allowed this congregation to thrive for over 160 years. Through a myriad of fundraising efforts, we have supported the needs of this congregation both materially and spiritually. For indeed, your offerings support both the physical space we inhabit and the spiritual center we create within these walls. Today, we will be gathering funds in support of UUAA, and there are several ways you can engage in this practice. You may, when the baskets pass you by, drop cash or checks within. You may also contribute digitally by navigating to uuaa.org/giving, or you may text UUAA to 73256. Whichever method you choose for your generous contribution to this congregation, we thank you. I would now like to invite the ushers to please come forward as today's offering will be graciously gathered and received. I would now like to invite the ushers forward, and I ask you to rise in body or spirit. To speak these words of dedication with me as we receive the bounty of your gifts gathered here today. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
And how lovely it is that our bounty today includes the squeals of delight of a newborn. As we continue reflecting on the nature of stories and myths, I want to bring to you a brief reading by Rebecca Solnit, who is known to many of us, fabulous writer that she is. This is from a chapter in her latest book. The chapter is called The Story Killer and His Sentence, and it's from her 2025 book, No Straight Road Takes You There. She writes, "Who controls the past controls the future," wrote George Orwell in 1984. "Who controls the present controls the future." He who has the story has the power. She who has no story, not even her own, has no power. And so a story killer clawed his way through the years, destroyer and generator of stories, sitting like a judge over them all, shaping the public imagination, both with what we saw and heard and what we did not. What we do not know is always the heavier side of the scale, and those of us who find ourselves there find ourselves silent, mute, gagged, our stories murdered before they can go out into the world, or our stories stillborn because we did not dare to speak, or because we despaired that if we spoke, our words would not do the work words should do in this world, which is connect us, weave us into society, but would rather endanger us or make others ostracize us. And so the scale dipped low with the weight of strangled, murdered, stillborn, stunted stories. The stories sat inside like impacted wisdom teeth, something that needed to come out but could not. I want to invite you to just join me in a breath or two as we hold the words of Rebecca Solnit together. If you feel so inspired or intrigued to read the rest of Rebecca Solnit's chapter or book, I encourage you to do that. This particular chapter, you only find out who the storyteller, who is also a story killer, is towards the end of the chapter, and it becomes clear she's talking about Harvey Weinstein. Some stories in our culture become dominant. Others are suppressed, sometimes intentionally suppressed, for the personal interests of the person suppressing them or for the political or social interests of the broader culture. Some dominant stories become larger than life, larger than the kernels of truth that the original stories were even based on. They can become myth or mythic. Every culture has mythos, and that mythos helps define and ground the cultures that it is a part of. These myths can be religious, social, cultural, civic, or political in nature. A few examples are cultural stories about the Easter Bunny, have both religious and cultural tones to them. The very familiar to us Unitarian Universalists, the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mythology has both social and political implications to it. One of the things that we were delighted to read in our annual worship survey was how much you all, our congregation, love having the opportunities within the worship service itself to turn to someone near you and have a few moments of discussion on the topic of the morning. Given our collective love and appreciation for that, for the most part, I assume, we're going to invite you to enter into that kind of a moment this morning. And what I'm going to do is, particularly if you came here with somebody, I'm going to invite you to find somebody who is not that person, your good friend or spouse, if possible, and try and be in pairs, maximum 3 or so. And if you need to move around slightly, feel free to move around. Online, we're going to invite you to engage in a conversation of the whole group within the chat. And here's the invitation. The invitation is to name one, just one, mythic understanding, story, or belief, one cultural myth, and your personal take. Is that cultural myth or cultural understanding, is it good? Is it bad? Is it both? Is it neither? You get to express an opinion about it. The person receiving your cultural myth and your opinion does not get to debate you. They get to listen. They get to listen and receive. And so we're just going to take a few moments to do that, and both online and in person. And if you would now, please find a conversation partner, maximum 2. If I may gently invite us to come back together as a whole. I know we use love to talk and share our opinions and ideas, and if I may lovingly invite us to come back together as a whole. Thank you for sharing with one another. We will continue these conversations, we hope, in the social hall afterwards for those of us who are gathered in person. I encourage you to keep those conversations going. Out of curiosity, how many of you came up with myths or cultural myths that you thought were good, positive? A handful. How many came up with cultural myths that you thought were negative or harmful? More people. Interesting, interesting. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for each of those conversations. Yeah, I'm inviting us today into deeper reflection on the nature of myths, particularly cultural myths. And mythic understandings often become a form of social shorthand that can carry political and other forms of meaning. Yet when accepted uncritically, when accepted without examination and critical reflection, we can lose the sight of the ways in which these mythic understandings have a political purpose to them. Let's take one that I and many of us here grew up with, the story of the Thanksgiving feast between Pilgrims and Native Americans. Now, growing up, for me in the 1970s, I saw movies in which the depictions were of brave, typically white cowboys being ambushed by or attacked by Native Americans who were depicted as scary, if not outright savage. Then in contrast, at school, you got the Thanksgiving story, in which, following a large, bountiful fall harvest, the Pilgrim settlers of Plymouth invite the local Wampanoag Indians to a 3-day harvest festival and feast. There are elements of truth to this. Something like this actually happened in 1621. Yet the fact that this story was universally taught to American children and very little else about Native American Indians was taught creates a mythic context. Native Americans within this mythic historical context are mysterious. They are dangerous. But despite that danger and uncertainty, the generous pilgrims of Plymouth extended an olive branch and hospitality to them. These things don't have to be said explicitly in the way that I just did. They are taught through implication. They are imputed in the information made available and the information that isn't made available to generations of American kids like me, perhaps like you. The dominant story reaches mythic proportions, defining an entire national holiday, and it carries buried in it political messages and understandings. The myth is a salve. It's a balm to the actual historical reality of white settlers in North America having dispossessed the Native American people and the concomitant genocide and official attempts at cultural extermination sanctioned by the US government. Breathe with me for just a moment. I just said a lot. I said that historically, the actions of settlers in the United States have been genocidal, have involved the dispossession of entire cultures and peoples, and have included attempts at eliminating the language, religions, and other cultural expressions of the indigenous people of North America. It is as hard for me to say that as it is for you to probably hear that, particularly if you're born and raised here in the United States, as I am. Yet it's only in light of these broader historical facts that we can see the harmful, disproportionate mythic quality of the 1621 Pilgrim Feast story. It's disproportionate for a reason. Small aside, a congregant reminded me in the break between the two services. If you didn't know this, it's a good thing to know. In the 1870s, we Unitarians were given agent status over a Ute reservation on the Colorado-Utah border. This was a time period in which the federal government was asking churches to take the lead in the process of assimilating and civilizing Native Americans, and the Unitarian Church agreed to do this with the Ute. We didn't do it for a very long time, and by all accounts, we were not very good at it. But that doesn't matter. We participated in the larger social project nonetheless. And this led to a denomination-wide and association-wide formal apology to the Ute people in 2009, in which Ute elders participated. So holding this kind of colonialist legacy, which deeply shapes our culture, in mind, I just returned about 2 weeks ago from being a member of the first ever Unitarian Universalist religious professionals delegation to Palestine. Many denominations send lay people and religious leaders on these Holy Land tours, basically to visit the churches and mosques over there. This was not that. This was a human rights delegation, not a tour of the Holy Lands. And I'll tell you, it was a very demanding experience. For 2 weeks, we typically got up at 6. Our formal programming, we began around 8 in the morning, often didn't get back to where we were staying until 8 or after 8 in the evening. Some of you read the dispatches that I sent back, the reflections I wrote while I was in Palestine. I was often writing those at midnight or past midnight, even knowing I'm getting up again at 6 o'clock the next morning. It was a very intense experience, but I'll tell you, it was like a master class, a graduate level seminar, getting through that opportunity, getting to meet the foremost thinkers of Palestinian culture, the leading artists, the leading theologians, the leading political thinkers, the leading activists. The quality of the experience was truly remarkable and for me, life-altering. It was so significant and so deep in its content. There is no way absolutely no way that I can share with you the depth of that content in one 20-ish minute sermon or reflection. So for today, understanding that over months and years, we will return to this topic, and there is so much more that needs to be shared and reflected on together. But for today, I want to share with you the piece that hit me the most immediately and the most strongly as I began my time in Palestine as a part of this delegation. And it was the role of mythology and how strong, how deeply U.S. understandings and the U.S. relationship with Israel and Palestine is shaped by mythology. It is only possible for us to continue in a deeper conversation on this topic together over time if we first tackle the nature of mythology. It is essential, it's critical, which is why I wanted to have this conversation soon after my return from Palestine. So let's take a look at some of this governing mythos, some of the cultural mythology that so deeply shapes how U.S. culture interacts with the issue of Palestine and Israel. And here's the biggest one. And I'm going to offer it to you as a math equation, but roll with me. It's a meaningful math equation. Zionism equals Judaism equals Israel. I'll say that again. Zionism equals Judaism equals Israel. These three concepts have gotten so enmeshed at the level of U.S. culture that it is implicitly assumed that in order to support one of these three things I just mentioned, you must support all three. And that any critique of any one of those three things necessarily means that you are being critical of all three. This is mythic thinking, and this mythic thinking serves a political purpose. So let's begin to gently unmesh what has become deeply enmeshed. Zionism. So Zionism, it's a historical Jewish movement which traces back through the 19th century, but the modern version of it is specifically connected to the late 1800s. That's the version that continues until today. Its aim in modern Zionism is it has been and continues to be the establishment of a homeland for the Jewish people. The father or grandfather of this modern Zionistic thinking is an individual by the name of Theodor Herzl, who in 1896 published a book entitled The Jewish State. In that book, Herzl makes the case for the Jewish people needing a homeland. Now, there's some inherent challenges with this. The Jewish people in the late 19th century were minorities in other people's lands. So where in the world would this Jewish homeland be situated? There's the first and the biggest challenge. Multiple locations were considered around the world, including lands that were under British protection. One such strong possibility was in in East Africa, what has become modern-day Kenya. Here was the recurring problem with any location that was seriously considered. Unless this future Jewish homeland was situated in some barren, inhospitable, unlivable location, there were likely already people living there. And in East Africa, it was the Maasai people. Locations in other parts of the world were considered in Russia, in Japan, in Madagascar. After World War II and the atrocities committed against the Jewish people, there was a deeper sense of urgency within the Zionist movement, and pressure was placed on the British to have this Jewish homeland be Palestine. Now, what one needs to understand is the land of Palestine is considered highly desirable. It has historically been known as the Fertile Crescent, and with good reason. It has some of the best agricultural land in the world. And the problem here is that there were already human beings living in these lands, in the lands of the Fertile Crescent, in the lands of historical Palestine. And so several mythic understandings were cultivated. One of those mythic understandings is religious in nature. Jewish King David, the ancient Jewish king of Israel and Judah, ruled over these historical lands of Palestine 3,000 years ago. Therefore, the religious mythic argument goes, the Jewish people are returning to their historical roots, the lands that were once ruled by King David. Mind you, by this religious logic, that of honoring a theocracy that existed 3,000 years ago, in a similar vein of argument, one could argue that all of the lands of North America should be returned to the indigenous Indians for whom this is their historical birthright. The second mythic understanding, the first one's religious, the second one is more maybe cultural, you could say. Cultural and political, for sure. And there's a phrase that goes along with this that began with the Zionist movement in the 1940s, but it continues to be used today. And that phrase is a land with no people for a people with no land. Now, some of you know I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. And this phrase provides a very concrete description of what Israeli Jewish settlement in the Levant and historical Palestine means or could mean. It implies that you've got Israeli settlements being constructed in barren desert where no one has ever lived before. Heck, I grew up with these understandings as a kid, as a teenager, and you can wind up thinking, well, what's the harm in that? They're building housing and complex and services in places where people have never lived before, in the open, unclaimed desert. What's the harm in that? Except that it's a myth. Remember that what I said, this is some of the most fertile, arable, productive land in the world. It's highly desired. It is not open, barren, unclaimed desert on which nobody has ever lived before. There may be such land, but nobody's building settlements on it because it's undesirable land. The land that is being built on is desirable land, which means that there have been people living on it and working that land, cultivating that land, claiming it as their ancestral land for generations upon generations. Zionism, from the beginning, has involved the displacement and dispossession of millions upon millions of Palestinians, which means in turn that the founding and the ongoing project of the Israeli state, it is a colonial settler project, not dissimilar from the colonial settler project that occurred here in the United States that impacted the Native Americans. The difference is that the Israeli colonial settler project is still ongoing, and the people being dispossessed, murdered, and having at times genocide committed against them are still actively resisting. It's important to note that not all Jewish people support Zionism. This is especially true of liberal and reform Jewish folk, as well as our very own Unitarian Universalist Jewish folk, many of them. Yet at the level of US culture, we've still got this broader and implicit, unexamined equivalency. Zionism equals Judaism equals Israel. To call into question Zionism within the broader US context is received as not supporting Israel and not supporting the Jewish people writ large. I have previously, in earlier sermons, particularly upon my return from visiting Auschwitz, said that questioning the actions of any national government is fair game. We Unitarian Universalists absolutely do not hesitate from doing this. We question the actions of both Democratic and Republican administrations here within the United States all the time. In a similar way, it's legitimate to question the Netanyahu administration's actions as those of politically elected leadership with whom we may disagree. Disagreeing with the government of Israel does not mean that we aren't supportive of our Jewish UU siblings and more broadly our Jewish American siblings. Disagreeing with the history, the actions, and the tactics and the outcomes of the Zionist movement does not mean that we are not supportive of our Jewish UU siblings and more broadly our Jewish American siblings. To that end, let me also be clear that I know that the genocide the Jewish people endured and survived through the Holocaust creates a sense of vulnerability when conversations like this one come up. I truly get that. And beyond simply getting it, it's understandable. That sense of vulnerability exists for good reason. It's important in that context that our Jewish siblings know that our Unitarian Universalist support for their ability to practice their faith freely, honor their culture, live with dignity and freedom without persecution or discrimination remains strong and unequivocal. It is not an either-or choice. Our Unitarian Universalist sense of love is not finite, it is not bounded, and in that sense, we can recognize that the movement of Zionism is not all of Judaism, and our love for and commitment to the Jewish people does not mean that we cannot condemn the outcomes of the Zionist movement and the actions of the Israeli government. We, Unitarian Universalists, stand for religious pluralism and for the dignity and human rights of the Palestinian people. It's time to step up and untangle the myths that have been holding us back.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we take the next right action together, whether it's a song, a prayer, a word, or a step. Turn in your gray hymnal, if you will, to number 168 as we sing one more step in the gray hymnal, number 168. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will take one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Beloveds, as you go out into a new week, I encourage you to embody in all the good ways that you can the courage of this faith, of this tradition, a tradition that acknowledged its own mistakes that it's made along the way. We, in a similar way, can live into and acknowledge the mistakes of this country, this nation, that reverberate around the world in places including Palestine and the Levant. We are brave enough, we are courageous enough to do that. In fact, we recognize that we are a stronger people of faith in that courageousness and honesty. Go forth encouraged in that, held in that, known that you are supported in that commitment by this beloved community. Until we meet again. Amen.